In this video, I'm going to show you how to measure the impact of Agile on your Agile delivery teams. Hi, I'm Peter Case. One thing we hear often as Agile coaches is, how can I prove the impact of our Agile transformation? Now, there are plenty of qualitative ways to do that, whether it's NPS scores, employee engagement scores, and maturity assessments, but there aren't a lot of quantitative ways. If you're struggling to measure the impact of your Agile transformation, this video will walk you through the steps to begin measuring your Agile outcomes. Now, there are many ways to go about this, but I'm going to show you a few ways that I found based on data that should be fairly easy to get. Step 1. The first thing you need to do is to pull data from your project management tool, whether that's Jira, ADO, or elsewise. What you're looking for is for count of completed work items for as many months before your Agile transformation as well as after. Now that you've pulled the raw data, it's time for step 2, which is to clean up and organize the data. Organize the data into a cadence that was consistent before your transformation as well as after. Some examples are count of work items per release, count of work items per month, count of work items per sprint. Then clean up the data by discarding anything that wasn't completed. We just want code change work, such as bugs, tech debt, and user stories. Once you've cleaned up and organized the data, it's time for step 3, which is to account for any changed variable. For example, if the size of your team is half as large now as it was before your Agile transformation, you'll need to take that into account. Accounting for any changed variables in pre-Agile transformation versus post-Agile transformation will ensure that you are only focused on the impact of the Agile transformation itself. Once you've accounted for any changed variables, it's time for step 4, which is to calculate pre- and post-Agile transformation metrics, including throughput, cycle time, and work type distribution. Work type distribution. Prior to your Agile transformation, how many bugs versus user stories did you have in each release, or sprint, or month, or whatever the cadence you chose? You see, agility helps us to shift learning left, which means that we fail sooner, which means that we're going to find bugs earlier. In that sense, it stands to reason that as our Agile transformation goes on, the number of escaped defects will decrease. Throughput. How many work items were delivered in each release, sprint, month, whatever your cadence is. Through improved collaboration and transparency, you begin as an Agile team to optimize your processes. The handoffs, the delays are improved, and you should see over time improved throughput. In cycle time, we are measuring the amount of time from when a work item entered a step to when it exited a step. Through improved collaboration, communication, and coordination, the amount of time spent in each step, whether it's in dev, in testing, in staging, should improve over time. Now, one word of caution about measuring cycle time. You should only measure cycle time for the steps that were directly changed as a result of your Agile transformation. For example, if part of the whole process is to get funding from a financial department who is still using an old or antiquated version of project funding, you wouldn't want to calculate that in your cycle time. So only measure the things that your team has direct control over. Now, ultimately, an Agile transformation will touch and should touch every area of the enterprise. Otherwise, it's like putting the best engine in a Ferrari, but never changing the oil and never fixing flat tires. It doesn't matter how well your engine is, that thing ain't going anywhere. We have to improve the whole. But often the transformations start at the development team. So let's measure there, share the successes as a way to get the rest of the organization on board. Now that we've talked about the steps, I want to show you one that I did. To provide some background, when I first learned of Agile, I went in kicking and screaming. I had reasoned that the work my teams were doing was very efficient, and we were doing really well, and that there was no reason to change our processes. So I determined that I was going to measure how we do things now, and then I was going to be able to contrast it with our post-Agile transformation, and show that there was no value in changing. But I did promise to give Agile a fair shake for 6 months, and I did. And what did I discover? Well, let me show you. Now, This particular spreadsheet is one that I did at a later engagement. It's not my original, but these outcomes are similar to the ones that I initially saw. Now, I'm not going to show you all the raw data because it would be meaningless, but what you'll see here is that I started tracking between 2016 and 2019. I looked at our cadence, which was our releases, and I looked at the average number of bugs and stories and miscellaneous in each of our releases for each of our products. Along with other data, I was able to surmise that prior to going Agile, we were doing about 3 production releases a month. Afterwards, we were doing on average 4.3. That's a 43% increase. Also, during that period of time, we released on average 70 issues per production release. Now, after our Agile transformation, that went to 86 work items. That's a 23% increase. What about our bugs? Prior to our Agile transformation, we had 48 bugs per release. After our Agile transformation, we had 22. That's an improvement of 54% in bugs. Our quality was getting better. What about our user stories? Well, prior to our Agile transformation, 22 of those in each of our releases were stories, and it bumped to 65. Now, for those of you who don't know, the user story, that's value added, that's new functionality. That's what you want. So we increased 195%. Now, I wish that I'd had the data to measure escape defects as a percentage before our Agile transformation. But what I can tell you is that our escape defects after our transformation was 10%. Here's the other interesting thing. We had 17 customer outages in a year. After our Agile transformation, it went to 1. Now, during this period of time, we didn't add any more developers or anything. Our team size stayed the same. But during that period of time, not only did our quality improve and our throughput improve, but we actually were doing more work because we went from supporting 3 operating systems in our solution to supporting 10. Also, we were supporting 15 applications, but we saw these improvements as a result of our Agile transformation. So to recap, step 1, gather as much data as you can from your project management tool. Step 2, clean up and organize your data. Step 3, account for any changed variables. Step 4, calculate throughput, cycle time, and work type distribution from pre-Agile transformation and post-Agile transformation. And along the way, you may discover other things that you can measure. So there you have it. In just a few steps, you can begin to quantify the impact of your Agile transformation. Listen, for years, we've heard about how Agile's improving everything. And I've scoured the internet for years and I found very little KPIs or different measures that we can use to prove it. These are a few ways that I found, but I can tell you that as you begin to measure these things, your value to your organization will grow because you can precisely specify the value of your Agile transformation. Thank you for watching. I hope you'll use this information, and as you do, share your success stories with me. Until then, thanks for stopping by.